This is an empty classroom, but over the next 6 months, the Derby Museum will welcome about 16,000 students on field trips. Across the country, students are headed back to the classroom, breaking out of those summer routines and replacing them with school routines. Today on Derby Academy, we're going to be talking to administrators about the importance of establishing those healthy routines, but also we're going to be talking to a horse teacher or trainer and talking about the importance of healthy routines for these 2-year-old thoroughbreds coming to the racetrack, learning how to be racehorses.
Hi, my name's Amy Niemeyer. I'm the principal at Slate Run Elementary School in New Albany, Indiana.
My name is Marcy Satowski. I'm the assistant principal at Slate Run.
Can you talk about some of those healthy routines that kids really need to have to be successful at school?
Absolutely. I think starting with a good balance, talking about healthy eating, and then also like our sleep patterns and rest and downtime. So that's going to be important that we're getting to bed early and getting adequate rest.
I think also keeping routines the same at home at night, making sure every Tuesday you have this practice. So that means we have to get homework done on Monday versus Tuesday.
What are some practical ways that parents can support that?
I think starting out and really mapping that out as a family, sometimes that, looks like a schedule you post on your refrigerator and talking through ahead of time, because it's really helpful for kids that crave that structure. And kids do crave that structure and consistency. The biggest obstacle that we often see is that that self. Sometimes that can be a motivational thing, which really I think the key in that is lies within the relationship. And we build that connection opportunity and really building that relationship with the teachers and students in your class to have that motivation and excitement to learn. Then also so often students are afraid of that failure, so making it safe to take risks, and it's okay if we have those failures, and that's how we learn and grow the most. Then once we have that connection, we've got that willingness to learn, providing really structured core instruction, but then intervention. And so if the students aren't getting it in the typical core learning, then we've really strategically placed small groups and extra support, one-on-one instruction, very small group instruction, space that throughout the day so that we're really meeting those individual needs.
You told me before the interview started 164 new students into Slate Run this year. What are some ways that you sort of streamline them into the Slate Run community?
As administrators and teachers that may not have their own classroom are trying to get into those classrooms every morning to do that morning routine with the students and see them.
Right.
We really focus on going to the classrooms and doing walkthroughs and greeting those students and let them know that they are a part of our family. We're connected here with them, and they're important to our school family.
What do you think is your biggest role keeping Slate Run safe, keeping Slate Run a learning community?
I think that setting that tone each and every day, we say our job as adults is to keep you safe, and your job is to help keep it safe. And we bring everything back to that safety, because when we feel safe and then connected, we're able to learn. And then we can take learning and go to high levels with that learning process.
My name is Tom Bemberg. My father was Jack Bemberg, Hall of Famer, horse trainer, and Marion H. Bemberg was my grandfather, another Hall of Fame horse trainer. I learned probably about the only way you can learn for the most part in the horse racing business is through time spent on the backside, in the barns, in the stalls. The biggest lesson I learned is that if you put in the time, you put in the effort, and you work hard, your luck will come. Luck's not a thing that happens all the time, but the better you're prepared and the harder you work, the more luck you'll have. Thoroughbreds learn how to be racehorses, start when they're a yearling. They'll actually go down and learn how to get a saddle on and a bit in their mouth and the bridle on and then eventually a rider on their back. And so they'll go through the early phases of their racehorse education as a yearling. And then they don't actually start their racing until they're 2 years old. Kindergarten for a racehorse is very similar to kindergarten for students. For young people, it's a lot of repetition. And so you're trying to get the individual comfortable with the situations that they aren't familiar with and introduce them to new ideas, and the more you do it, the more repetition you have, the more comfortable they become, and the more confident they become, and so they'll thrive if they get comfortable and they continue to do the same things, and you put them in an environment that is comfortable for them. The transition from the training centers to the racetracks is very similar to a student going from, say, kindergarten to grade school or grade school to elementary school, and you try to keep that same path going where you do a lot of repetition, so it brings confidence to the horse, and they handle the transition well, and then they understand there's more chaos, there's more activity, there's more action, there's more factors, sensory factors that they can be influenced by, and so you want them to be confident to move forward in their training. Routine is utmost important with the horses, and especially when you get into the phases of getting towards their racing career, where you have to take them to the paddock and they're large groups of people that are yelling and loud, and they're exposed to that. And then again, also on the starting gate, it's a lot of repetition there, because the more comfortable in the starting gate, the more calm they are, the better they're going to perform. Probably the most difficult lesson for a thoroughbred to learn is actually to win. The thoroughbred is a herd animal, and so some have the will to win naturally, and some of them have the will to follow, and they're okay with that. And it's just like individuals and people, there are natural born leaders, and you can learn to be a leader, and horses you can teach to compete. But it's a natural instinct that you have to kind of develop and nurture. And some of those horses it comes easier, and some of them it comes a little bit tougher for. The horses that are the toughest are the ones that aren't motivated naturally. And that's the toughest ones to figure out sometimes. And what you do is you change equipment, you change styles, you put them in company with other horses that are motivated. You try to teach them how to compete and how to perform. And you just have to kind of find out what mix of races or equipment that fit their style. Learning to break from the starting gate is probably one of the more interesting and more important phases of their training in the racehorse. And it really leads a lot of skill for the gate crew to go actually and make the horse comfortable. And just like any student or any child, the more they do it and the more comfortable they become, the better they become at it. And so it's a lot of repetition. It's day in and day out. And that process will actually start on a lot of the training centers before they come to the track. But the more you can do it here at the racetrack, the better they become. So it's just like any individual in a student. Some take different types of learning and they handle it better than others. We had a filly out in California when I was working for my father, and as a 2-year-old, she would continually stumble and fall down and roll on the rider, and so we'd take her to the training track, and I kept on telling my father that, Dad, she's a workman's compensation nightmare. She's going to get somebody hurt. She's going to hurt herself. He's like, oh, Tom, she's just clumsy. She's growing. She'll get better. So I nodded my head, went in agreement with her, and she continued to stumble. Well, when she turned 3, she stopped stumbling, and she became a multiple stakes winning filly later on in her career. So I learned my lesson that, just like humans, just like individuals, just like children, students, they all develop at their own rate, and you kind of have to take that into account and kind of nurture them along the best you can at what point in their career they are, and eventually they hopefully they turn a corner and develop. Do horses get a report card? Their actual report card probably is their performance on race day. So every time we race a horse, we go back and check what they did right, what they did wrong, what we did right, what we can improve on. And so that was their biggest report card, is when we go out and we kind of go back and assess them and give them a grade and say, what do we need to improve on and how can we change going forward to make them compete better.
A thoroughbred trainer's job isn't to get every one of their horses to the Kentucky Derby. And just like school teachers, you're going to have a room full of kids, and not all of them are going to go to Harvard, but a trainer and a teacher have this in common. They're trying to get everything they can so that each student or horse can live up to their potential.